Welcome everyone to our webinar on keeping climate justice going with donor advised funds. Today we'll be hearing from myself, Sandra Kwok. I'm the founder and CEO of TenPower, Deb Parsons, who's a managing director at Impact Assets, Matt Elridge, who is the executive director at Realize Impact, and some of our amazing investors in the Renewable Energy Access DAF, Spencer Ahrens and Derek Hayden. Wonderful to have all of you here today. We'll start off with a quick presentation from TenPower, which is my social impact organization. I founded TenPower in 2015 to create climate justice through renewable energy projects. And we actually launched in Haiti. And currently we've been developing projects with Native American tribal communities for the last couple of years. All of the projects that we do have a gender equity and workforce development lens. So we're deeply invested in the communities having jobs with each project that we create. And here are some highlights of projects that we completed in Haiti. In 2018, we installed the largest solar and storage project on any UNICEF base in the entire world at that time. And during the pandemic, we worked with Give Power, which is Solar City and Tesla's nonprofit, to build a solar-powered water desalination plant. And this plant is now providing clean drinking water for 35,000 people. It was actually a model where the initial investment was a grant, and then the plant was built with an ongoing revenue stream where residents of this island, La Gonave, which is off the coast of Haiti, paid a below market rate for water. And that supported a local team to be able to operate and maintain the plant. Because what we saw in Haiti was that a lot of projects with the best of intentions were did not include an operations and maintenance or O&M plan. And so what happens in those cases is the project quickly falls into disarray and it's not providing local jobs. So you always want to make sure that you have a good O&M plan in place and ideally are providing local jobs for the community. We also created a workforce development program in partnership with Haiti Tech University and the Solar Electric Light Fund, training women in the Haitian workforce to join the solar industry. And I'm really proud every single woman that graduated from this program was hired by a local installer and is currently working on projects in Haiti. We have ongoing operations and maintenance going on our projects despite the political difficulties in Haiti. And these are just really incredible contributors to the workforce. So getting into our main topic today, it was really difficult for me to raise money in Haiti. So especially as a for-profit social impact enterprise, looking at raising blended capital stacks with equity, debt, grants, there's not a sandhill road for impact startups, right? It's not like the VC community, you know, where a tech startup can just go and knock on a whole bunch of doors and pretty easily land an investment. It's there's no playbook for raising impact capital. And especially when I started TenPower in 2015, there weren't even really standardized metrics. So the UN Sustainable Development Goals were really just kind of gaining traction. And so it was before there was really consensus in the impact investing community around what impact is. So we created a Renewable Energy Access Donor Advised Fund, or DAF, working with Impact Assets. We learned about this instrument from Tim Freundlich at Impact Assets, and it was like this huge light bulb went off. And we were saying, wow, what an incredible instrument. There's a ton of money sitting in DAFs, and this is a really flexible type of capital that can creatively be invested in mission-oriented startups. So let's go ahead and start a DAF and see what we can do with it. And we worked with Spencer and his wife, Eva, to launch the Renewable Energy Access DAF. And it's been really wonderful for TenPower. So high level overview, what are DAFs and why are they so hot right now? Well, DAFs allow high net worth individuals, family offices, corporate donors to create a special account that can go towards charity, philanthropy. And they receive an immediate tax deduction in the year of the creation of that account. The tax benefits are very favorable for DAFs. Also, a variety of different types of assets, stocks, crypto, or real estate could be donated to a DAF. And entities like Realized Impact and Impact Assets have figured out how to invest DAF capital into mission-aligned entities like 10 Power, which is a benefit corporation. So it's not necessarily exclusive to 501c3s. And actually, a criticism is that you can invest in 501c4s as well for lobbying purposes. So they're very, 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 very flexible. Some would argue too flexible. That's one of the smaller issues. One of the bigger issues with DAFs is that there are not requirements on time limits or disbursement requirements on DAFs. So there's not a threshold. So with philanthropy, 5% of the returns have to be invested, but with DAFs, there's not that requirement. And the majority of DAFs are sitting with these large brokerages like Fidelity, Schwab, and Vanguard, and they're just invested in Wall Street. So the brokerage is collecting fees on them, and there's not incentive for that capital to actually get moved into creating impact, which is the whole reason why the donors got a tax break in the first place, is because it's supposed to be creating this transformative impact. So now is a really important time to put this capital to work. When you read about people's motivation for starting DAFs, oftentimes it's a windfall capital gains year. But it's nice to have this reserve account because it can create resilience during really tough times. And I would say right now is a pretty tough time. So it's a moment in history, especially in US history, I think for all of us to be pulling out all the stops in terms of seeing what we can do to help and keep things on track, moving towards a future that we want to live in. DAFs as a whole have seen a meteoric rise in the last 10 years. So we started our DAF in 2019. I wrote a little white paper, was looking up some total. I thought this was a really big number. There were $121 billion in DAFs at that time in 2019. Well, the latest report in 2022 showed that this has almost doubled to 234 billion. And estimates currently for DAFs are over 250 billion. So we've really seen this incredible amount of capital going into DAFs. They've increased by over 400% over the past decade. And taking into account the cons that we saw in the previous slide, what's this money doing? Is it just sitting there? It's money that could really be used to go directly to communities and help in this moment. So in terms of climate justice, I think that we're all here because we care about climate justice, and we have seen how transformative the Inflation Reduction Act has been over the last couple of years. Speaking personally for 10 Power, we have been able to do projects that previously were not feasible for frontline communities in the United States, and feeling like I was living in this incredible historic moment where the largest infusion of capital for climate justice ever had been made into the US economy, and not just for frontline communities, but rural communities, underserved communities, investing in American manufacturing and really creating, the new Green Deal and more, and helping us get on track towards fixing climate change and creating a truly sustainable and regenerative future. And what happened is a lot of businesses like 10 Power started making long-term investments and strategic decisions in realizing this future, and started building projects which take several years to develop. And now we're in this total lurch. Everybody is feeling it. I'm sure you're seeing daily how the federal government is jerking us around and making all of these illegal executive orders and blatantly lying. So some of the funding for projects that we've gotten revoked is based on these completely unfounded claims, which when challenged, it essentially comes down to like, oh, we just simply didn't like this policy, so we're going to call it illegal. So we're in this moment where it is very difficult to proceed with the projects that we have in place and to plan for the future and to put mechanisms in place to continue with these long-term investments, which are creating jobs, which are reducing energy bills for frontline communities who've been left behind, and which are really bolstering the US economy and our resilience as a whole in the face of increasing climate disasters. So at this moment, we're one of thousands. There are probably tens of thousands of projects across the country that were going to be enabled through Inflation Reduction Act capital grants like Climate United, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, Solar for All, which are currently on pause, the EPA Communities Change Grant. And what I am really worried about is organizations like ours shutting down and people who have been working in climate justice going into other sectors. And we have so much good momentum that is happening right now. If there's anything that we can do to continue these projects and make sure that they're realized, the benefits will flow for decades into the future. So it's a critical intervention point at this very moment in time. And I'm really ready to transfer. I've grieved. I'm ready to transform my grief into action. And I think that DAFs are a cool vehicle that we could do that with. So we have created an open source document for recoverable grants or forgivable loans. You could call them either one, or they could be structured as either one, depending on what's appropriate for the project. And we would like to publicize and share this paperwork open source. It is downloadable. I'll follow up with a link where you can have it. Please share it with others. The way that this works, these agreements, well, the way that the DAF as a whole works is that contributors put money into the DAF. They get a tax advantage immediately when they do that. And then from the donor advised fund, the forgivable loan or the recoverable grant can be issued as an impact investment in an entity like 10 Power. And in the case of a forgivable loan, when that loan is paid back, it's returned to the fund and can then be reissued to another impact organization. In the case of a recoverable grant, when there are triggers, so revenue triggers, if there's an exit, if there's a certain threshold that's hit, then the grant would be returned to the DAF. And what's beautiful about this is, as opposed to a one-time contribution to charity, and then your contribution is one and done, this creates a cycle where the money can continually be lent out and continue creating impact and spinning up that upwards virtuous cycle in the world. So we would love for this agreement to get out there. It's modeled off of the Echoing Green Fellowships agreement. We're a 2019 fellow, and similar to how the SAFE agreement is basically the go-to for convertible notes for early stage startups, we hope that this agreement can become a widely adopted piece of paper that everyone knows and understands, that's very simple, that impact startups can use for raising capital. So here's an example of one of the projects that we are working on right now and how government grants have supported this project, but now that those government grants are in limbo, where DAFs could play a very critical role. So the Resilience Hub at Pine Point is on a tribal elementary school, which also serves as an elderly gathering center and during after school hours. And it is one of the only pieces of infrastructure for the surrounding community of 326 White Earth Tribal Nation members within walking distance. This community has some of the highest rates of poverty and energy burdens, which is the amount of household income spent on electricity in the United States. They're in the 98th percentile. They also have blackouts, usually about 5 blackouts per year. They're at the end of the line, but they're still experiencing energy racism. When you look at the electricity bills that they're paying, they're higher than their non-tribal neighbors who are right next to them. And so what this project will do is create a resilience hub where people can come during outages in the winter and sub-zero weather or during tornadoes It'll be a critical warming hub, charging hub for life supporting devices and communication devices. And this project will also provide 100% of the school's electricity and will help the White Earth Nation, the tribe, to reach their clean energy and climate goals. So it serves as a model for this tribe and others. It'll be about a 0.5 megawatt of solar, which is in addition to an existing 21 kilowatt demonstration array. It's up here. And we're also including close to 3 megawatt hours of energy storage so that we can use that sunlight and then run it all night. And especially because the blackouts are usually in the winter time when there's less sunlight, the battery will help keep things going around the clock when we're on emergency protocols. And because of Inflation Reduction Act and the investment tax credit, we were able to structure this deal so that the school is the owner of the project. So immediately from day one, all of the benefits are going back to the school. We're partnered with Eighth Fire Solar, which is a nonprofit that was founded by legendary water protector Winona LaDuke. We're really proud to be working with her. And Eighth Fire is located in the community. Their office is actually just right over here. I think it's that little house right there. And they are rooted in the community. Winona's son Gway went to this school when he was a little one. And so they know everybody who lives here. And we're deeply rooted in the community. They're going to be helping out with workforce development, and this is a great opportunity for them because they've previously been working mostly in solar thermal, and now they're moving into solar PV with this project. We are also engaging with the White Earth Community College on workforce development with Red Cloud Renewable. Shout out to John, who I saw here. The Bridge program, which is for women and Two-Spirit people to train in solar installation. And we're offering training and certification and jobs for community members. The panels that we're using are manufactured just a couple of hours down the road in Minnesota. So we're offering factory jobs for community members. And this is just a really important component of the project to me. We will be working with teachers at the school to incorporate the solar into Ojibwe language into the curriculum as well, so that the kids can go out and look at the solar panels and learn about how it connects to their culture. And what we hear from a lot of tribes that we're working with is, you know, this renewable energy is so much more in line with our values, you know, as a revenue generating source. And Dr. Chief Henry Red Cloud, who founded Red Cloud Renewables, you know, he says the new ways are the old. And renewable energy could be the new casinos in terms of creating really substantial revenue for tribes. So these types of projects are really an inroad for those larger scale projects they're generating a lot of power purchase agreement revenue for tribes. So this is our capital stack right here for the project. Total project costs are around $4 million. The community is paying $0 down for the project. We secured a Department of Energy grant for $1.75 million, a Minnesota grant for $500,000, and then private capital for the rest of the project. And then we have $1.5 million coming in after the project is completed in tax credits. The ITC is the investment tax credit. It was raised with the Inflation Reduction Act from 26% to 30%. And the IRA also created these adders for low-income communities, for domestic content. And so we're anticipating a 10% adder for a low-income community. The other incredible thing that the IRA did is that it put in place a concept called direct pay. So instead of having to have a third-party investor come in for the tax credits and then wait for a fair market buyout in year 6, direct pay actually makes it possible for non-tax-paying entities like schools, tribes, and churches to receive that tax credit directly from the federal government. And of course, being something that is equity focused, it's now under attack. So this is a really instrumental place where DAFs can help play a role in helping to insulate against that risk. So these are the two areas that are really under threat right now. The ES4E stands for Energy Storage for Social Equity. The program recently got renamed to Energy Storage for Community Resilience. So programs like this are either completely paused or are under threat when the capital has already been allocated. We're also very worried about the ITC not coming through because the project has to be placed in service before you can apply for the tax credits. So we're racing to get this project put in place by December. We're probably going to go live right before Christmas, like December 23rd. And then we'll be filing for the tax credits in 2025 to try and make sure that they don't go away before, or they don't get changed before the project is complete. So here's another visual on what the project costs look like, and we're adding in another tranche here, which is bridge loans to cover the ITC amount, because those tax credits don't come in until a couple of months after you file for them. So the project goes into service in December. We're conservatively estimating that we're going to get those tax credits back in June or July. So this is a place where we could also utilize soft capital to be able to cover that amount. And the way that we have structured this project is we have a forgivable loan for the bridge loan. And if something bad happens to the ITC and we don't get it back, then it gets forgiven. Otherwise, it's a low interest loan that enables the community to take advantage of this amazing direct pay option, which means that they get the money back as soon as the project is complete. And so we don't have to have a third-party investor owning the project for the first 6 years of its life. So those 6 years of savings can go directly to the community. So areas where DAFs could really play an important role in this project are replacing some of the grants from the federal government, which are no longer available, and providing that soft capital for bridge loans, because we definitely want to leverage direct pay as long as it's around. But it's not a secure investment, because anything could happen these days with the government. Within 24 hours, anything could happen with this administration. So yeah, this is another area where we received a lot of help. So in terms of project development, we got a lot of support from the Energy Storage for Social Equity program. We received technical assistance from Pacific Northwest National Labs and Sandia National Labs. And a lot of this early stage development, it takes years, it takes a lot of investment, it takes a lot of engineering dollars. And so early stage development capital is another area where philanthropic contributions can really be instrumental and catalytic. And Todd at the Alliance is working with the Indigenous Power and Light Fund, which is catalyzing dollars towards those types of investments. So yeah, super grateful to see folks working hard on leveraging funds for this stage. And that's it for now from 10 Power. And so with that, I'd love to hand it over to Spencer and then to Derek to talk about the Renewable Energy Access DAF and what inspired you to invest in it, and any other words that you'd like to share.
Sure, yeah, thank you so much, Sandra. So yeah, when this project started, Eva and I were looking at different ways we could effectively allocate capital. We explored a lot of different options, from typical charitable donations and philanthropy to more like typical impact investment, like angel and seed round companies that were doing positive things for in the climate space. But then we noticed that a lot of charitable money was getting dumped into these DAFs, and had a lot of the issues that Sandra outlined, that the capital just wasn't getting deployed. So there's clearly an appetite from wealthy folks to make these donations and get the tax write-offs right away. But it felt like there was a need to kind of model different ways to manage and deploy the capital to actually have that impact. So we were really excited to partner with Sandra and her program and company as a way to kind of bring those together and be able to model this this program of being able to have the recycling evergreen charitable funds. I think it's also, I think there's a lot of hesitancy in the philanthropy community of when you know, make a donation, it kind of goes into a black box, and you just kind of have to like trust the organization to do well, you know, with the money. And you know, you can look at all these metrics and reporting and try and figure out like, you know, who's doing a good job and stuff like that. But I think having the revocable or the recoverable grant type model puts a lot more of that onus on like, yes, you are doing something that is economically valuable, and so that it is like financially sustainable, right? And it can pay itself back and go back into the community and drive a flywheel to bring things along. So that's what got us really excited about it, and being able to kind of show a path and get more people interested and get more capital into this space.
Thank you so much, Spencer. And Spencer and his wife Eva helped to create this DAF and are the signers on the DAF. Yeah, we're super appreciative for your support. Derek is also an investor in the DAF, joining us from Switzerland. Derek, over to you.
Thanks, Spencer, and hello, everyone. So our story, our business was one of the early B Corps, and so we've always had a philosophy of allocating 2% of our revenue for what I would call traditional corporate donations. And I'd never really paid too much attention to what my wife and I do personally. I never considered ourselves particularly wealthy. I'd never heard of a DAF before. Um, and I became friends with a gentleman named Ryan Honeyman, who in 2000, or 17 or 18 created a Force for Good fund, and about 20 B Corps kind of collaborated together. And it really opened my eyes to just how much of a problem exists in this world, where people don't have access to capital, who really need access to capital. And they might have successful business models, they might have viable communities, but we, through our systems and processes, and the way traditional lending institutions look at risk, basically say, no, you're not eligible. And so from that first investment, which we did through our company, I met Sandra through a webinar that she'd provided with Ryan that it kind of explained 10 Power's story. And I was just like, wow, this is a really smart way to use capital, that I've got a massive tax advantage in putting money into a donor advised fund. But what I loved more than anything else was this was the first time I'd come across perpetual giving. So that whether it was low interest loans or other vehicles, the fact was is that the investment or the grant that we made from our DAF to impact assets, and then in turn to 10 Powers project in Haiti, created this perpetual loan model for people to be employed, for people to um, uh, be able to sort of get away from a broken system that exists in Haiti, with the energy infrastructure. So that in turn sparked a journey inside our business where we now actually almost exclusively focus on how do we create loan models, whether it's low interest loans or forgivable loans, in order to fund access for whether indigenous people, people of color, people who otherwise do not have access to capital. So I want to just read, and perhaps by way of closing, because I'd never met Sandra before, but I was so enthralled by this model and like scratching my head as can it really work? And I emailed Ryan and just asked him, "Hey, can you just tell me is this all legitimate?" And his reply was, and this was in 2019, "I love what Sandra and 10 Power have created. Sandra is an exciting and dynamic entrepreneur, and 10 Power is addressing climate change and energy security for marginalized, vulnerable communities. I would definitely support your investment. This DAF is a particularly amazing vehicle for folks like you to get involved." And I think today, if we fast forward 6 years, you know, this sort of marginalized, vulnerable communities, it's never ever been greater. So I really thank you, Sandra, for your courage in plowing through everything that you're doing at the moment, and look forward to continuing to support.
Thank you, Derek. Really, really appreciate you. So we'll get a little bit more context here. So we've heard from some of our funders, and we'd love to pass it over to Deb on the impact asset side to hear about the fund and how this capital flows and the creative ways. I'm on the deployment side. I don't know anything about SEC regulations. So how do y'all make the magic work on the capital deployment side?
Well, thanks for having me, and I'm very excited to be here to talk about how you all could activate your DAF assets for amazing projects like this. I have a slideshow, so I'm going to pull that up. But before I do, just want to introduce myself. I'm Deb Parsons. I'm Managing Director at Impact Assets. I have been in the impact investing space for close to 20 years, maybe even more, and all about trying to create vehicles or initiatives that remove the obstacles from moving money to good solutions. So I have seen a lot of different ways that investors have tried to promote B Corps, invest in B Corps, invest in solar solutions, invest in women's access, to you name it. So I've seen a lot over the last 20 years, and I'm excited that you all want to learn more about how to do this with a DAF. So I'm going to share my screen, and but before I go into too much detail, I do have to do a slide that says I'm not selling you any securities here. This is just for educational purposes, and so here we go. Just wanted to lay out, impact assets. We were created 15 years ago by impact investors for impact investors. And what that means is that everything that we've created, our infrastructure, the way we govern ourselves, the way that we built our team, was to catalyze philanthropic capital to great solutions like 10 Power. So that's different than, say, a community foundation who has a DAF or a Fidelity who has a DAF. They created that to serve their stakeholders, primarily their investors or their community. This was all about mobilizing money to good solutions. So we've had a lot of success through our clients. We now manage over $3 billion in assets under management, and we've done a lot of great work into solutions that support planet and people. You just saw a graph like this earlier, but I just wanted to stay here for a little moment. Why people might use philanthropic assets. We've already heard two cases for it from Spencer and Derek. When you have a DAF, let's just use numbers. Let's really simple numbers. You have $100 in a DAF. More than likely, you will give out $10 in a year. And what happens to that other $90 that's waiting to be granted out? Well, with us, 100% of our investments are for impact. So those $90, they're invested in climate solutions. They're invested for gender equity, racial equality. They have an impact lens in everything that we do. So in this graph that has a little bit more detail is we do investments. We have managed portfolios. We have thematic impact funds, and we also have private impact opportunities. And everything in that box has an investment team that has done full institutional grade due diligence, and we make that accessible to our clients to simply check a box and say, yes, I care about climate. Please allocate, 50% of my balance towards that impact area. And then we have this really, really powerful service called the Client Recommended Investment Service. And that's where the fund comes alive. You're in the driver's seat. You find a great organization like 10 Power or any of the other wonderful organizations that are private companies or venture funds, venture debt, and you can do direct investing in those opportunities with your DAF assets. The onus is on you to do the due diligence in that situation, and then we manage that investment for its life. What I want to say is you're in good company. We do 5 or 6 of these deals a week. We do so many of these deals that impact assets because we are on the cap tables for all these investments on behalf of our clients. So the clients are doing this work, but we show up as the investor. We are the #8 US venture capital fund for early stage investing. So that's right behind Andreessen Horowitz. And I say this because when people discover that they can invest with their DAF, they're like, I never heard about this. And yet there is so much happening in this. And I'm sure Matt will share about that as well. But you're in good company, and this is done. It is something that happens, and it's not an outlier anymore. So I'm very excited to report that. And I just went over this, but really the big difference is if you want to do any kind of deal, we have clients that are so invested in climate justice. We work with our clients to get to yes. So they might bring a term sheet to us. Specifically, when we are working with tribal communities, term sheets are going to look a little bit different than a standard term sheet. And so we work with the investors, the investee, and our client to make sure that term sheet is reflecting the values and the goals of the project. So we are very hands-on in that situation, and we have seen so many different kinds of variations that ideally we can provide a little bit of context and value add in that stage of the investment. Lastly, I just want to put this all together. Like if you had a DAF with us, and you cared about climate, this is what it could look like. You could put some of your assets in, our managed impact portfolios. We have a climate solution impact fund, which is really addressing 4 key areas. Oh my gosh, and I just blanked on what those key areas are, but nature-based solutions, climate justice, decarbonization, and the last one has just flew out of my head, and I will type it in. But that impact fund is become quite popular for those for our clients who don't know where to start, but they know they want to align with climate. And then we have our private impact opportunities. So we put on venture capital funds and venture debt on our platform. Our clients can get into funds like Just Climate, Generate. We had Breakthrough Energy Ventures as an opportunity for our clients. And then the last, like I said, is this client recommended investments. And our clients, this is really where I think we find a lot of excitement. Think of it as angel investing with a philanthropic checkbook. And this is where you could participate in 10 Power. And then lastly, our clients still do a lot of granting. And so a recoverable grant is also something that, like, if that was the instrument that you needed to do, we could support that through relationships with Realize, who will be speaking next. But the granting is just a wonderful complement to the impact investing. You don't have to just use one tool. And I think that's why people come to us too, is they know that they want to do a lot with their dollars and it goes farther. I'm going to drop in the chat this FAQ called Investing with Philanthropic Capital so that you get a sense of how this works. And certainly could take any questions. But with that, shall I turn it over to Matt?
Yeah, let's hear from Matt at Realize Impact.
Excellent.
Thanks so much, Deb. Really appreciate that. Nice to see you, everyone. And we're really honored to be a part of helping 10 Power and other impactful organizations make a difference in the world. And as was discussed earlier, now more than ever, I also have a few slides, and I'll move through them pretty quickly because I know we're all interested in making sure we have time to address any questions you have. Can you all see my slides all right?
Looks great.
Okay, great. Great. So Realize Impact, we're a 501c3 nonprofit that started back in 2013. Our mission is to provide financing to impactful companies that otherwise lack access to conventional funding. And 6 years in 2019, a group of impact investors got together at the Seattle Foundation. And one of them said, I wish I could make an impact investment as easily from my DAF. And that's when the idea for what we call philanthropic investment grants, or FIGs, not pigs, was born. And 2 months later, we launched it. And since then, the momentum has been nothing short of exhilarating. Our purpose is to make impact investing easy, rewarding, and possible. We do that through 3 programs. The FIG program is just one of those, and that's what I'll focus on today. So donors said to make it easy, and we sought to remove, kind of like impact assets, we sought to remove as much friction as we could find. You can make a philanthropic investment through us in 3 easy steps. First, you make a grant and recommend an investment that we should make. And your grant can come from any DAF, it can come from impact assets, it can come from elsewhere, family foundation, or directly as cash, securities, or even cryptocurrency. We then do the due diligence on the recommended investee. And when our investment committee approves, we then make the investment and become the investor of record. This can be in anything impactful, whether it's a fund or single company, anywhere in the world, any structure, debt, equity, even recoverable grants, as Deb was referring to. And then when an investment generates returns, we then grant 99% back to your DAF foundation or other 501c3 you recommend, or we can even recycle them into a new impact investment. And what's different about our approach is that all this is done by grant making. So you make a grant to us, we later grant returns, typically back to your DAF, because one thing that DAFs can do very easily is make a grant to a 501c3 like us. The economics are pretty straightforward. There's a one-time $500 fee per grant, covers the cost of our diligence. There's no annual or other ongoing fee to administer the investment. And then by keeping 1% of the returns, our interests are aligned with those of donors. Also, because our approach typically involves grant making from a DAF and granting returns back to a DAF, we've found a way to keep the structure very lean. In just 5 years, we've moved more than 60 million into more than 300 investments around the world. 22 million of this was in 2024 alone. So including a recoverable grant to an impactful venture like 10 Power. And with your support in the next 2 years, we expect to move more than, or expect to have moved more than 100 million. And for the climate and the planet, the need has never been greater. We're here to help.
Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate the flexibility that Realize Impact provides, and the track record that impact assets and Realize Impacts have in being able to catalyze this capital. I'll real quick share an example of what we were able to do with this collaboration between impact assets and Realize Impact, leveraging money from our Renewable Energy Access DAF. I don't know how many folks follow the news in Haiti, but essentially since the president Jovenel Moïse was assassinated in 2019, the country has been backsliding into a lot of gang violence, and essentially right now is considered a failed state. So this type of environment is especially difficult for women. And so we are very proud that we were able to install solar on a Haitian hospital with a maternity ward. And we actually, our Haitian team of installers had to sneak the panels out on an ambulance to get them out to the clinic. We got our lady solar installers on the team. We are regularly conducting operations and maintenance every quarter with our brave Haitian team. And it's keeping the lights on for providing critical services for families in this area of Haiti. And this moment, as we've all alluded to, is really a critical time in US history and in world history. You know, there was a report recently released, saying that over the next 50 years, 40% of humanity could perish due to climate change. And most of those people will be in frontline communities. And the hardest people who are hit in frontline communities are those who are already vulnerable, our children, especially girls, the elderly. And so it's hypercritical, not just for US democracy, but for the future of the planet, that we don't let what's happening in US politics derail our commitment to climate right now. And the flip side of that is all of the amazing things that we can enable through these investments, and really taking this moment of crisis to build a future that is so bright we couldn't even imagine it before, because there was too much business as usual in our way. And so in this moment, in this great turning, in this clearing, it's time for us all to come together and really galvanize. Let's do it for the kids. And just in the name of visioning and thinking about what is possible for us right now, we have around 50K in our DAF. With 500K, we can continue our renewable energy development with tribal nations. With 5 million, we can really start investing in much larger scale projects, and we can also help support sister initiatives like Red Cloud Renewables. I mentioned their bridge program that trains women and Two-Spirit people. They just lost federal funding, so they need about 275K per year to keep that program going. And so with larger investments, we can help. It's not just about TenPower, it's about all of our sister organizations, it's about our ecosystem. And the Renewable Energy Access DAF is flexible. We can deploy capital into other organizations, and so helping all boats to rise. We can do that with some larger tranches, and if we were able to raise 50 million into our DAF, this would really provide catalytic capital for us to be able to finance much larger scale projects and start helping communities to move up the ladder, get into those larger revenue generating utility scale assets. And then also, the activist in me is like, let's start participating in class action lawsuits. Right now, everybody's afraid to stick out their neck because they think their head's going to get chopped off, but there's way more of us, than there are Elon Musks. So I think we really need to activate our warrior energy right now, and be getting out there, not just in the streets, but into the courts. And so this is our vision for the Renewable Energy Access DAF. I'll put my information into the chat, and I'd love to open it up in these last 10 minutes for Q&A, for discussion. We're a pretty intimate group here, so folks can use the chat if you're feeling shy, or also feel free to just hop off mute. I see we have 2 questions from Marcus in the Q&A. Has the DAF been created? Yes, the Renewable Energy Access DAF exists. It is with impact assets. We have deployed capital through Realize Impact for projects. And then this second question, is the DAF just another nonprofit that disperses funds to other nonprofits similar to a community foundation? I'm gonna kick that over to either Deb or Matt to differentiate what the difference is between a DAF and a 501c3.
Yeah. Deb, as a DAF sponsor, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So we are a 501c3 ourselves, and we are called a DAF sponsor. Community foundations also are DAF sponsors. So we both do similar things, but again, because of how, when you do your 501c3 charter papers, ours was specifically to do impact investing. And so our DNA and our infrastructure and everything is set up to move money. Whereas other DAF sponsors, it's to preserve the money, and it's also to take less risk because they need to make sure your assets are available for grant making. And so it's just a different way of organizing your work. And so we are very similar. What we are not, though, is like a private foundation, and private foundations have different distribution rules and different reporting rules. So a DAF is actually a really quick way and a low administrative way for philanthropists to get going on grant making, and then, of course, on impact investing. And can I just also share a little bit about, I know So you have the DAF here at Impact Assets, and you're asking folks to contribute into your DAF. Do you have the mechanism at hand to like a link to provide anybody on this webinar to do that? Because I can explain how that's done too.
Oh, that would be really cool. No, I just put my contact info into the chat, and I figured we'd make some direct connections. But I know that
Sure.
folks like Derek had an existing DAF at one of the big brokerages, and then transferred capital in. So yeah, would love to learn a little bit more about the
Yeah,
process.
and what it really looks like is it's like you're making a grant to another 501c3. That 501c3 in this case is Impact Assets. And then we then allocate that to the DAF account owned by Spencer and 10 Power. So if you are at Say Fidelity, you would make a grant to Impact Assets. And I can provide the account name that you would put on the form. But it is a very easy process to do. So that's what I wanted to emphasize. This is not a lot of paperwork. It's simply if you have a DAF, or if you're like, I don't have a DAF, I still want to donate, you can write a check. You can also do a credit card. And you can contact me if you want more details on how to do those, because I will give you a form to fill out. In either way, you have to like designate where it's going. But it is a very simple process. And I will follow up with you too, Sandra, about the direct way that you can do it.
Thanks. Other questions, comments, ideas, contributions?
I will just say quickly that Impact Assets, and I know that Deb covered this, they really have been a pioneer in this field, in impact investing and moving capital into impact. And that was, as Deb said, in the original charter. And likewise, with Realize Impact, we're not a DAF sponsor, but we work with more than 80 impact assets. We work with quite commonly, and it's really just been a pleasure to work with Deb and her colleagues. So just wanted to give a shout out.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Likewise.
I have a question, which is, can Deb and Matt, can you give us the 3 to 5 talking points? So if we have an investor, someone who wants to give to a DAF, what are the 3 to 5 benefits, especially from a tax perspective, that they would get?
Well, first thing I would say is I can't give a tax advice because that's going to be based on your where you are. But one of the main reasons why people open up a DAF is it decouples the tax event from when you want to do your grant making or any of the activity that you want to do with the DAF. So that often is important for people who are holding a lot of securities and you had an up year, then you can transfer those gains into your DAF, which is pretty common. But the second thing is DAF makes all the grant making, and in our case also the investing, simple. We have a full team that will vet any nonprofits that you make a grant to, so you don't have that burden. And then for the investing, we have a very strong investment team that vets deals. And then in this situation, you can also direct your own deals. And then lastly, depending on if this is important to you, this one I think it has neutral judgment. I'll say that. But DAFs can be anonymous, and some people will want that because for a variety of reasons, to protect their families, to protect other goals that they have that they're big on, and then they might want to do something on the side, and they don't want to confuse the market about what they're in what's important to them. So there's so many reasons why that piece is important. And certainly there's some abuse there too. So I want to name that, but there are a variety of reasons why people would want the anonymity. And then those were 3. I'll add one more from a distribution. Like, you have to give a certain amount out every year if you have a private foundation. And that is, we don't have that same requirement. And to be honest, this is one of the DAF policy changes that we'd all like to see, because honestly, those dollars need to be put out in the world and not just camping out in accounts and providing fees to the investment managers who are managing those assets. So while you're not required to make grants out of it, some find that like, okay, great, now I can make all these investments, and that is the lever that I'm going to use for impact. So that, I guess, 2 administrative qualities and 2 neutral benefits as well.
I just have one
Sandra,
talk.
if I can.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just a very practical, plain English example is if you purchased some stock at $10 and today it's $100, and you thought about, well, I don't want to take all of that myself to just pay capital gains tax. I'll put 20% of that into my DAF, and then transferring that money to impact assets and in turn to TenPower means they're getting that full benefit, and yet it's only cost me that original $10. It's so impactful, and I haven't paid a penny in tax on it in capital gains. So it's a really clever tool, and I wish I'd discovered it earlier.
That's a great example.
I know we're almost out of time. The one talking point I would throw out there is we like to say, by the way, you can also invest using your DAF. I think for many investor donors out there, they've often thought of only using their investment capital to make impact investments. And it really is easy, whether you have a DAF with impact assets, or you move money into a DAF at impact assets, or you have a DAF anywhere and you want to use an intermediary like Realize Impact. Either way, we just really do our best and pride ourselves on making it easy to deploy that capital into impactful companies like TenPower.
Okay, speed round. We have, do DAFs invest directly into project codes or only DevCos, OpCos, and HoldCos? To my knowledge, as long as the company is mission aligned, it can go towards any of the above.
Agreed. Yes.
Sweet. All right. It's 1 in California. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. Thank you for all the amazing work that you are doing in the world. It's really good to spend this time together. Really appreciate you. Please follow up. Our contact information is in the chat, and we'll send out a follow-up email to everyone. Have a beautiful day. Hope to talk soon.
Thank you, Sandra, and everyone. That was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.